Welcome to NFL Nexus. Today, we are diving deep into one of the most nerve-wracking, high-stakes events in all of sports, the NFL's Scouting Combine. You know, it's this wild place where years of amazing college play can either get a big stamp of approval or get seriously questioned, all in just a matter of hours. We're talking careers, contracts, and literally millions of dollars hanging in the balance, all based on a few drills, some measurements, and a couple of tests. So in this explainer, we're going to break down 10 specific players who saw their draft stock go on a total roller coaster, for better and for worse, after their weekend in Indianapolis. And that really brings us to the big question, right? The one that every scout, every GM, and every fan is kicking around this time of year. Can 4 days in Indianapolis really define an entire career? I mean, think about it. You've got these prospects who have been absolute legends on Saturdays for years. Their highlight reels are just packed with game-winning plays. But then, they get to the combine, and all of a sudden, their entire future seems to boil down to a 40-yard dash, how high they can jump, or even just the length of their arms. It's a total pressure cooker, where dreams are made in a flash of speed, or they get shattered by a fraction of an inch.
And let's be clear, this isn't just another workout session. Oh no. The NFL Combine is the ultimate job interview, and it's happening under the brightest, most intense lights you can possibly imagine. Prospects are getting poked, prodded, and measured in ways that must feel totally surreal. But for the NFL teams, this is a critical piece of the puzzle. They're on the hunt for hard data, numbers, that can either confirm what they're seeing on game tape or raise some huge red flags they might have missed. A killer performance? That can turn a guy projected to be a day 3 pick into a day 2 lock, adding millions of dollars to his rookie contract. A bad one? Well, that can send him tumbling right down the draft board.
So, what is this thing, exactly? Well, at its core, the Combine is all about standardization. It's how teams can finally compare apples to apples. Think about it. You've got a player from a powerhouse SEC school and another from a smaller, independent program. How in the world do you measure their athletic potential against each other on a totally level playing field? Simple. You bring them all to one place, put them through the exact same drills, the 40-yard dash, the bench press, the 3-cone drill, and you just record the numbers. It is all about gathering objective, cold, hard data to go along with the subjective analysis they get from watching all that game film. But you know, that objective data can be a real double-edged sword. For some prospects, the Combine becomes this giant magnifying glass held right over their perceived weaknesses. It's the place where those little questions scouts had scribbled in their notebooks can turn into full-blown 5-alarm concerns. So we're going to kick things off with 5 players who, unfortunately, left Indianapolis with their draft stock trending in the absolute wrong direction, as scouts started to see some pretty serious red flags. First up, we've got Ruben Bain Jr., an edge rusher from Miami who was an absolute beast in college. The tape shows a guy who just lives in the opponent's backfield. But then he got to the Combine, and the measuring tape told a very different story. His arm length came in at just 30 7/8 inches. Now, you might be wondering, why does that matter so much? Well, for an edge rusher, length is everything. It's leverage. It's your ability to get your hands on a 320-pound offensive tackle first, to control the engagement, to keep them out of your chest, and then shed the block to make a play. This measurement, it's a historical outlier for a top prospect at his position. It immediately raises massive doubts about whether he can set the edge against the bigger, stronger, and longer tackles he's going to face every single Sunday in the NFL. Next, let's talk about Nebraska running back Emmett Johnson. Coming into the Combine, the hope was that he'd show off those dynamic traits you look for in a top-tier back. But honestly, his results were pretty lackluster all around. The most glaring number, the one everyone looks up for running backs, was his 40-yard dash time, 4.56 seconds. That was the slowest of any running back at the entire event. In the NFL, that tiny fraction of a second is the difference between a 5-yard gain and a 50-yard touchdown. It's the flashing light that signals breakaway, home run speed. So when you pair that slow time with just okay jumps and a really disappointing 7.32-second 3-cone drill, which measures how quick you can change direction, a picture starts to form. And it's the picture of a player who might just lack that elite explosiveness you need to be a true game changer at the next level.
Our third player whose stock took a hit is another edge rusher, L.T. Overton from Alabama. Now, at 274 pounds, he definitely has the size that NFL teams drool over. But the big question has always been about his athleticism. The Combine was his big shot to prove he was more than just a big body, but his numbers just created more questions. He clocked in at 4.87 in the 40 with a 1.7-second 10-yard split. And that 10-yard split is so important for linemen because it measures that initial burst, that get-off right at the snap. His times were just underwhelming for a guy at his position, and they suggest a real lack of explosion. Teams looking for a player who can consistently threaten the quarterback are now left wondering if Overton really has the juice to get it done. All right, flipping over to the offensive side of the ball, let's look at Notre Dame's wide receiver Malachi Fields. You see his size, 6'4", 218 pounds, and you immediately get excited, right? You're picturing a dominant red zone monster. But with that size always comes the question of speed and fluidity, and his combine performance was a real letdown on that front. He ran a 4.61 second 40-yard dash, which is definitely slower than teams were hoping for, even for a big guy. But it was more than just the time. Scouts noted that he really struggled to accelerate and had a lot of wasted motion when he was running routes during the on-field drills. For a big receiver in the NFL, being able to create separation is everything, and a slow 40 time combined with inefficient route running, well, that's a huge red flag.
And finally, rounding out our group of fallers, we have Ohio State defensive tackle Caden McDonald. In college, he was known as a premier run stuffer, but the question was always there. Can he be more than that? Can he be a disruptive, three-down player who can also get after the passer? His on-field workout did very little to answer that with a yes. He just looked rigid and stiff in the agility drills, and he didn't show the kind of explosiveness you really want to see from an interior lineman. And then, to make matters worse, he chose not to run the 40-yard dash at all. When a player skips a key drill like that, it often just reinforces the very concerns scouts already have. In this case, that he might be a limited two-down run stuffer, and not the versatile defensive weapon teams are looking for. Now, this slide right here, this perfectly captures the brutal, cutthroat reality of the combine. It truly is a tale of two fortunes, and it's all decided by a simple stopwatch. On one side, you've got Emmett Johnson, whose 4.56 second 40 has his stock falling hard. And on the other, you have Mike Washington Jr., another running back who ran a blazing 4.33. The difference is just over 0.2 of a second. But in the world of the NFL draft, that tiny little gap represents a massive chasm in perception, in draft position, and in potential earnings. We're talking millions of dollars. It's just a powerful, powerful illustration of how one single drill can change absolutely everything. Okay, enough of the bad news. Let's flip the script and look at the other side of that coin. Because while some prospects falter under that immense pressure, others absolutely seize the moment and put on a show. These are the players who force scouts to go scrambling back to the tape to reevaluate their potential and to start moving them way up their draft boards. These guys didn't just meet expectations, they completely shattered them. For these 5 players, the combine was a massive flashing green light. And we have to start with the man himself, Mike Washington Jr. from Arkansas. At 6'1" and 223 pounds, he already had the size teams love. But running a 4.33 second 40-yard dash, the fastest time for any running back at the entire combine, that is just different. You could see the pure emotion on his face right after. He told the NFL Network, "I've worked my whole life for this." And that one run, it validated everything. It proved he has that super rare combination of size and truly elite, game-breaking speed. Analyst Dane Brugler noted that while another back might get drafted first, Washington made a powerful, undeniable case to be considered a top 3 back in this class. That run was pure electricity. And folks, it made that man a lot of money. Now just listen to the sheer weight of this praise. It's one thing to have a good combine, right? It's a whole other thing to be called, arguably, the most electric on-field combine showing by a linebacker in the past 3 decades. That's what The Athletic said about Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles. He was already viewed as a potential first-rounder, but his performance was just jaw-dropping. He measured in at a massive 6'5", 244 pounds, and then proceeded to jump clean out of the building with a 43.5-inch vertical. That's the second-best mark for a player in his position group since 1999. It was a historic performance that confirmed he's not just a good football player. He is a rare, freaky, elite-level athlete. A performance like that could easily push him from a mid-first-round pick into the top 15, or maybe even the top 10.
And if you thought that was nuts, just look at this. Arkansas quarterback Taylon Green didn't just have a good day, he completely rewrote the record books. Standing at nearly 6'6", he posted a 43.5-inch vertical jump, absolutely shattering the previous QB record of 40.5 inches that was set by Anthony Richardson. He also set a new QB record in the broad jump and ran a blistering 4.36 second 40-yard dash. Now, look, Green is considered a project as a passer. He definitely needs to work on his consistency and accuracy, but this kind of elite, verifiable athleticism is completely off the charts. It gives him a ceiling that is arguably the highest of any quarterback in this entire class. Teams are now going to see him not just as a backup, but as this special talent, a weapon, who, with the right coaching, could become an absolute superstar.
The Combine is also a massive, massive opportunity for players from smaller schools. And Skylar Bell from UConn is the perfect example. He was unbelievably productive in college, ranking among the nation's leaders in catches, yards, and touchdowns. But because UConn is an independent, there were always those nagging questions about the level of competition he was facing. The Combine was his one shot to prove he belonged on the same field as the guys from the SEC and the Big Ten. And boy, did he ever do that. He ran a strong 4.4 in the 40 and posted a 41-inch vertical, which was the 5th highest among all the receivers there. He showed every scout in that building that his athletic traits are legit and that his insane college production was no fluke. He proved without a doubt that he can hang with the best of the best.
And look, athleticism matters at every single position, even for the big guys up front on the offensive line. And Iowa center Logan Jones put on an absolute clinic. Iowa has a reputation for churning out elite offensive linemen, and Jones looks like he's the next man up. At nearly 300 pounds, he ran a 4.90-second 40-yard dash, the fastest of any offensive lineman at the Combine. That is truly extraordinary speed for a man his size. It speaks volumes about his agility, his ability to get out to the second level on run plays, and to pull and trap defenders in space. It's exactly why analysts now expect him to be a top 100 pick and a guy who can step in and become a starter very, very early in his career.
So we've seen the incredible highs and the crushing lows. We've seen careers and fortunes altered in just a matter of days. And this all brings us to the central tension of the entire NFL draft process, doesn't it? What these individual stories really tell us is that every single team is making a calculated gamble on draft day. They're weighing 4 years of production against 4 seconds of potential, game tape against testing numbers, and what they know for sure against what a player could become. The Combine is a massive, massive input into that equation, but it's certainly not the only one. So what are the big takeaways from all this? Well, first, it's clear that objective measurables like Reuben Bain Jr.'s arm length can create serious, tangible doubt in a prospect's ability to translate to the next level. Second, elite off-the-charts athleticism, like what we saw from Sonny Styles and Taylon Green, will always command attention and force teams to totally reconsider a player's ceiling. Third, this doesn't mean game tape is suddenly irrelevant. Not at all. In fact, it's still the most crucial piece of the evaluation. But what the Combine can do is validate what you see on tape. When a player who looks fast on film runs a fast 40, it confirms that speed is real. And finally, and maybe most importantly, it is crystal clear that one weekend in Indianapolis can, and absolutely does, dramatically alter a prospect's entire fortune.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question for every GM on draft night, doesn't it? When that clock is ticking down and the pick is in, what do you trust more? 4 years of incredible game tape or 4 seconds on a stopwatch? It's the multi-million-dollar question that defines franchises. What do you think? I'd love to know. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And hey, if you enjoyed this breakdown, do me a huge favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, NFL Nexus, so you don't miss our next deep dive. Just as a quick note, you can also help support the channel by checking out our coloring books. They are perfect for unwinding for kids, grandkids, and even adults. You can find the link right in the description or just by scanning the QR code you see on your screen now. Thanks so much for watching.